Today we're going to run through the cards that were in my wallet this quarter. If you're new to the segment, it's pretty much an excuse to talk cards, but also run through redemptions and travel we did in the past 3 months. Big favor before we dive in is to give this a thumbs up to help with the algorithm. If you know someone that might benefit, then share this with them. Starting off cards, we do run a pretty aggressive setup. I'd say that we have 3 constant cards and 2 flex ones for a 5-card lineup. Your mileage may vary for your circumstances, but it works for us. Our main categories are eating out, supermarkets, and travel. We're mostly focused on transferable points, and the main reason is upside. For dining and groceries, we have the Amex Gold, which is a mainstay for us, given the aggressive multipliers. The annual fee is pretty annoying, but the credits help a ton, especially for us and how we spend. I think we are a bit under break even, but it still works given the multipliers. For flights booked directly, we use the Amex Platinum, and the main reason is the multipliers. Other than that, the main reason we have the card is lounge access. A big reason for this is that we do end up flying about once a month, and since we're out of SFO, San Francisco, the Centurion Lounge ends up being a pretty good pick and a good way to start trips. So crowding was a lot worse back in the day, but it has gotten a lot better with the changes they've made. So generally, we've been fans of this since we both have a Platinum card. It also could be when we travel, but yeah, it's been fine. The catch-all for everything else is the Capital One Venture X. 2x on everything is great and pretty much a break-even card given the credits and the anniversary bonus. And technically, it is arguably a keeper card in our case since the miles are worth a bit more and have more upside. Benefits-wise, it does feel a bit repetitive, but it's fine. So that's our big 3. One of the flex spots is going to be chasing intro bonuses. So I actually ended up picking up a no annual fee card that offers 1.5% back on everything, and technically 1.5x since you are earning points. Also 3% back on dining, so 3x on dining, and 3% back on drugstores, 3x there, which is surprisingly useful. The offer is pretty good right now. You get $250 cash back after $500 spend in the first 3 months. So even if you are in team cash back, $250 divided by 500 is 50% return on spend, which is amazing for a no annual fee card. Given that it is technically points, you do have more upside if you do have other cards in their ecosystem and you want to transfer out to partners like Hyatt. So the $250 is technically 25,000 points, which is pretty good. I'll link to it in the best offers page down below, but if you are in the early stage or if you are circling back and you're under certain rules, then it might make sense to look into. No annual fee plus a great bonus makes it a pretty good pickup. On a side note, if you want to learn about cards, we have links on the website asksabby.com and also down below in the description box. Make sure the links are competitive and that the cards make sense for you, but otherwise it is a huge way to support the channel, so thank you in advance. The other flex spot is a hotel keeper card to generate free nights and elite status. Main use case here is going to be taxes and rent payments. Basically arbitraging situations where I'm paying maybe X% to get X plus Y% back in value. So for example, in the case of taxes, paying 1.75% in order to use my credit card to make tax payments, but getting value back on top. It does depend on your circumstances, but if you do anything outside of a W-2, then you probably need to do this. Whether that's a side business, YouTube, investment income, dividends, or maybe other companies are just being paid differently. It also doesn't have to be a big thing. It could be driving for Uber. You're going to need to make estimated tax payments. I'm more than happy to spend $15K to pay taxes that I have to pay anyways to get a free night that I could use at some nice places, either for skiing or to go to a tropical vacation. In this case, I'm running $15K in taxes through the card, and through the platform, I'm paying 1.75%, so paying $262 in fees. What I'm getting back though is 1 free night reward, which I can use pretty much anywhere, and then also points, and it's about 45,000 points. This is a bread and butter setup and how we end up doing a lot of trips in order to get nights. Also, even if you don't want to travel too far, there are a ton of options in the US, like Hawaii if you like beaches, Beverly Hills if you want to be fancy and go shopping, or Park City if you want to go skiing. Speaking of which, Q1 did have a lot of skiing, as people following on Instagram have found out. One reason I've been happy to broadcast these trips is due to today's sponsor, Delete Me. Data breaches and identity theft are the norm nowadays. Even if you are good about it yourself, it might be on the vendor's end. Even worse are data brokers who take this information and then resell it. It doesn't help that there's data leaks and places get hacked. Do me a super fast favor. Search for your first name, last name, and email or phone number. There's a lot of sites out there that share this information and also your birth date and maybe even your relatives' names and birth dates. This can be a huge risk for identity theft and also home invasions and burglaries. There are ways to remove this stuff yourself, but it can take hours. Delete Me makes it super easy, and I've been using them for more than a year. In that time, they've reviewed over 50,000 listings, doing all of this in the background, and I've gotten stuff removed without me lifting a finger. Maybe I'm alone here, but I'd rather not have my home address online. On average, Delete Me removes over 2,000 pieces of data in your first 2 years using them. If you want to join me and protect your personal information this year, then check out joindeleteme.com/asksebi and use promo code SEBI for 20% off their US consumer plans. Starting the year strong, we repositioned to Chicago to fly the new ANA First and business class. We initially booked out of SFO, but we did have another product change to the product, so it kind of made sense to reposition. Mostly because it would have been the third time Mandy got product changed, and yeah, she's already missed the first class 2 times already. She already paid $72.5K initially, which is the cost for a one-way first class from the west coast of the US to Japan. We did find availability and called in and spent an extra $12.5K for a total of $85K for first class for her. For me, it was 7.5K more points, so 52K.5 to 60K, which is pretty fine for me for business. Also, in case you're wondering, availability isn't too bad for March and April for business class. A few options would be Hawaii, Vancouver, and Seattle, and also SFO, Chicago, DC, and Houston. Reminder that for Chicago, DC, and Houston, you are paying a bit more points, but that's fine. Also, the price search engine is from Virgin Australia availability, so prices are a bit different. In our case, we are booking a Virgin Atlantic, but oftentimes they share the same inventory. All the banks transfer to Virgin Atlantic, so great redemption if you want to try first class. Pretty awesome food as well, and same thing with alcohol. Business is also a good choice if you like the hard product and you want a bit more room. Food is a bit weaker and it's fine, but yeah, mostly there for the comfortable seat. After landing, we shipped the skis and boots off to Niseko, that way we could explore Tokyo without as much stuff. One of our favorite first stops in Tokyo is the Conrad. Location-wise, it's pretty good and a pretty close walk to a few different things. Rooms are also pretty solid as well and generally pretty big, which is nice in my book. If you do go during off-season, it might be surprisingly affordable as well. During peak season, it can be pretty absurd. So in that case, pretty good use of certificate or points, and if you do have elite status, they have a pretty good breakfast. Lobster omelet is hard to turn down. We ended up doing 4 nights here, so 3 using FNRs, free night rewards, and then 1 night directly paying out of pocket. For my notes, when we ended up booking this, the main reason we did this was because it was a lot cheaper for that Friday night, and it was mainly because the pool was closed. The member non-refundable rate was about $373 USD, which was fine. So in our case, we'd rather save a certificate for something more expensive. Our next stop was the Hyatt Centric Ginza, and I went in with pretty low expectations. So first off, it felt like a ton of points, and secondly, it's a Hyatt Centric. Those are not the best hotels. I was pretty blown away though, even stepping into the lobby, given the customer service, the amenities, and just a vibe. Location's also pretty good as well if you like shopping and you want to be in Ginza. We ended up doing 2 nights here using points. To be fair, it's still a ton of points, but yeah, weirdly impressed of it. And if you do have globalist status, they have a really good breakfast that was shockingly good. Okay, so next day is a little bit crazy and kind of a points reviewer problem, and it's going to be the Grand Hyatt Tokyo. So we have stayed here in the past before, but figured we'd do another trip. That way we could kind of be a bit more comprehensive. We ended up doing just 1 night here using FHR. Main reason was that it was in our strike zone of 200 or 500 per night for a luxury hotel, which is more than reasonable. In our case, it made a bit more sense because it was a good way to use the Platinum Hotel credit and also get FHR benefits. The room here is a bit more dated, but it's fine. You're paying for the location and also the nice lounge and service. This is one of the options I'd pay out of pocket for if cheap enough, but I don't think I'd use my points here given the new category increases because it's just way too many points. Maybe I'm alone here, but I think there are better Hyatts in Tokyo that are worth the points and might also be more expensive. But yeah, your mileage may vary there. After that, we ended up moving to Hotel Toronto on Hills, which was another pleasant surprise. It's not the most central, but we do like the location, and it's a pretty good workcation one. Main reason being that the lounge is pretty good, and it's also accessible to all guests. The rooms are also pretty big, and pretty walkable to where we like to go. We ended up spending 2 nights here using points, and definitely one of the more underrated and hidden options out there. If it's cheap enough, I'd recommend paying for it, but otherwise if it's more expensive, then this is a great use of Hyatt points. After that, we ended up flying to Sapporo and took the bus to the Park Hyatt Niseko. We had a great experience last year, and it felt like it made sense to run it back. Also because the shuttle from the airport makes it pretty easy. We ended up spending 3 nights here using points. If you go end of season, it can be surprisingly affordable in the 400-500 range, but peak December, January, February time, you're looking at about 1,200 to 2,000 per night. So given that, I'd happily use 40,000 or 45,000 points because it is the best luxury hotel in Niseko. Also pretty good skiing if you are trying to go up to the top and do more aggressive stuff. After that, we ended up moving to Hinode Hills in Niseko Village, which is part of SLH, Small Luxury Hotels. Reminder that they're now partnered with Hilton, so you can book it with Hilton points and certificates. We ended up booking 3 nights here on points. I don't think I took screenshots, but it was surprisingly cheap. I think about 70,000 points per night, and retail was about 800 to 1,000 per night, so pretty good value, more than 1 cent per point. It technically is a ski in ski out hotel, not really the most exciting, but it works. The rooms here are also pretty big, especially when we go to the next one. After 3 nights here, we ended up moving to Hilton Niseko, and it's a very different vibe. So it almost feels a bit more like New York, where it's a lot busier, there's more people, there's more food options, but you have a substantially smaller room. It is more convenient though if you are trying to ski because the gondola's right there, and it's also surprisingly affordable on points. Price-wise, we're looking at about 500 to 1,000, and I think points is about 70,000 points. We ended up doing 4 nights here, and if your focus is skiing and snowboarding, then I think it's fine. On a side note, if you want to track your trips, we might be working on something for this. I'll put a secret link down below if you want to be notified about maybe being a beta user. Yeah, building something that I wish existed. Also, if you are going to Niseko, we did end up doing a super big deep dive, pretty much an hour-long video going through all 3 hotels, looking at food options, and also what skiing is like. After that, we ended up shipping our skis off to Tokyo, that way we could pick it up at the airport, and spend a few nights in Sapporo. Mostly to eat and explore the city, and also got a sneak peek of the snow festival. So that was 2 nights, and then ended up flying into Tokyo. We found availability last minute for the Hyatt House Shibuya, and it was surprisingly good. Great locations, solid rooms, and great amenities with the washer dryer. Availability is a bit tough from my understanding, so I think they only have about 5 rooms or maybe 10 rooms that they end up putting out because they otherwise sell out anyways. But yeah, a lot of the Hyatts in Tokyo hit above their weight class, and they're really good. We finished the trip flying Asiana business class back to SFO. So we did pay out of pocket because it was in our strike zone. It wasn't the nicest plane though, and a bit old to be honest, and food was just okay. Price was right though, so for 2 passengers, about $2,700 one way, so about $1,300 per person, which seems pretty fair for business, and it's below the $1,500, $2,000 number that we're targeting. But yeah, I think in retrospect, we probably would have rather used points, like 70,000 points, to fly JAL or ANA back again, and do that instead because that's less money out of pocket and also a better product. In February, we headed to Utah to Salt Lake City. We started off the trip checking out Space Station and chatting with some friends over there. We skied Snow Basin, and it was pretty lucky because it was a snowy day, so that was pretty fun. Visibility was a bit tough though, and yeah, wasn't too many people on the mountain, so that was great. We then headed into town to stay at Asher Adams, probably one of the more underrated hotels in the US. Depending on dates, you might be able to find it for $200 to $300, which feels insanely affordable for a very nice hotel. But I guess it does make sense because Utah is a bit cheaper for everything. So for example, you can get basketball tickets for $10. Contrast this to Warriors tickets, which are about $150 to $200. For this trip, we also ended up skiing snowbird, which was pretty fun, and some of the more gnarly runs out there. So yeah, super happy I went with a local who knew the mountain pretty well and knew where to go. Snow wasn't great, but still a pretty good experience. Also ended up going to Deer Valley, which I thought was just okay. I'm probably going to make enemies because people love Deer Valley, but I felt it was a little bit boring. Great service and well maintained, but I think there was a bit more of a vibe to Snowbird. Also, St. Regis there is pretty nice, even though it is a bit dated. Grand Hyatt is super new and beautiful and well worth checking out either this season or next season. Last one was Alta, which was also pretty good. Didn't do anything too crazy, but a good fun day of skiing. I think I like the view better from Alta, but Snowbird was also really good and the runs were pretty fun. Also, if you do plan to get into skiing or snowboarding, then the passes are the meta. They are pretty expensive, but if you go more than once, you're going to come out ahead. So in our case, we got the Icon Pass, we did Niseko for 7 days, which wasn't that expensive, about $500 in value from that trip. Snow Basin was about $300 in value, Snowbird was $180, Alta was $338, and Deer Valley was an insane $658. In total for this year, I ended up locking in about $2,000 in value, which I otherwise would have had to pay. Technically, we do have one more trip coming up to Jackson Hole and might do a fast trip to Palisades, so finishing off the season with $3K in value. Obviously, it depends on what you like, but to me, it's the same idea as credit cards, where you're running the numbers, doing the math, and for a lot of people, you might be surprised by the value you get. You have to like first or business, the fancy hotels, or skiing or snowboarding, but it can make a lot of sense. But yeah, your mileage may vary, so do one make sense for you. Thanks again to Delete Me for sponsoring today's video. Again, if you want to learn about cards, we have links on the website, AskSabby.com, and down below in the description box. If you made it to this point, leave a skiing emoji in the comments down below and I'll try to heart it and also respond. My question for you is, what's in your wallet this quarter? Did you take any trips recently or do you have any planned? And also, do you ski or snowboard? I would love to do a ski day or ski trip next year if people are down and it's not too weird. Availability for hotels might be a bit tough, but we'll see what happens, and yeah, let me know if you're interested. I think it'd be pretty fun. Let me know and everyone else know in the comments down below. Big favorite, thumbs up, share this, but otherwise hope you liked it. See you next time.